December 14, 2024. Victoria Hartwell, ex-wife of tech billionaire Marcus Chen, stood in her $12,000 gown at the Metropolitan Charity Gala and did the unthinkable. She slapped a 19-year-old black college student in front of 500 of America's wealthiest elites, calling her trash that snuck in where she doesn't belong. But when the girl finally revealed who she really was and why she was actually there, would Victoria's world come crashing down? Or would power protect her one last time? The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Venetian ballroom cast prismatic light across marble floors so polished they looked like frozen lakes. The Metropolitan Charity Gala was in full swing, and Manhattan's elite moved through the space like sharks in designer clothing. Cartier watches catching the light, champagne flutes held with practiced elegance, laughter that never quite reached anyone's eyes. Jasmine Porter stood near the coat check, her fingers smoothing down the simple black dress she'd borrowed from her roommate. At 19, she was acutely aware that everything about her screamed outside. Her dress was last season or maybe 3 seasons ago. Her shoes were from a department store, not Louboutin. Her hair, natural and pulled back into a neat bun, drew sidelong glances from women whose blonde highlights cost more than Jasmine's monthly rent. She clutched her small crossbody bag, the one her grandmother had given her before she passed, and tried to remember why she'd thought coming here was a good idea. The invitation had arrived 2 weeks ago, embossed with gold lettering. Selected Student Representative, Columbia University Partnership Initiative. She'd been so proud. Her sociology professor had nominated her, calling her research on economic disparity groundbreaking for an undergraduate. Now, surrounded by people who wore their wealth like armor, Jasmine felt like a fraud. "Excuse me," a woman's voice, sharp as cut glass. Jasmine turned to find a tall blonde woman bearing down on her, champagne sloshing slightly in her glass. The woman's gown was emerald silk, probably worth more than Jasmine's entire scholarship. Her face was beautiful in that expensive way, perfectly symmetrical, suspiciously line-free, lips plumped to ideal proportions. "Yes," Jasmine managed. The woman's eyes traveled from Jasmine's face down to her shoes and back up again, the assessment brutal in its speed. "Are you lost? The service entrance is in the back." Heat flooded Jasmine's cheeks. "I'm not. I'm a guest. I have an invitation." "Of course you do." The woman's smile was thin, disbelieving. She turned to the man beside her, a silver-haired executive type. "Bradley, call security. These charity cases are getting bolder. Now they're just walking in off the street." "Ma'am, I'm a student at Columbia. I was invited. I don't care if you're the Queen of England." The woman stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming. Something French and too heavy. "This gala is for donors, people who contribute, not people looking for handouts." Other guests were turning now, conversations dying as heads swiveled toward the commotion. Jasmine felt every eye on her, felt the weight of their judgment, their assumptions. A black girl in a cheap dress. Obviously, she didn't belong. "Victoria, darling, what's the fuss?" Another woman glided over, older, dripping in diamonds. Victoria. The name clicked in Jasmine's memory. Victoria Hartwell, ex-wife of Marcus Chen, the tech billionaire whose company had just gone public for $40 billion. The divorce had been tabloid gold 6 months ago. Accusations, counter-accusations, a settlement rumored to be in the hundreds of millions. "Just some confusion, Margaret." Victoria's voice dripped condescension. "This girl seems to have wandered in, probably hoping to steal a few hors d'oeuvres." Jasmine's hands trembled. She wanted to run, to disappear, but something in her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Never let them make you small, baby girl. You belong anywhere you have the courage to stand." "I'm not leaving," Jasmine said quietly. "I was invited. I have every right to be here." Victoria's expression shifted, amusement giving way to something darker. She snapped her fingers at a nearby security guard. "Remove her. Now." The guard, a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, approached reluctantly. "Miss, if you could just check the guest list." Jasmine's voice was stronger now, even as her heart hammered. "Jasmine Porter, Columbia University." I'm here representing the Student Scholarship Program. The guard paused, uncertainty flickering across his face. He pulled out a tablet, scrolling. His eyebrows rose. She's on the list, Mrs. Hartwell. Victoria's face flushed. That's ridiculous. There must be a mistake. No mistake, the guard said, his tone careful. She's a guest of Dr. Eleanor Whitfield, head of the University Partnership Committee. For a moment, Victoria looked like she'd been slapped, but she recovered quickly, her smile turning vicious. Well, how progressive of Eleanor. Bringing her little diversity project to show off. The words landed like stones. Jasmine felt them in her chest, each one designed to cut. Around them, guests whispered behind manicured hands. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked entertained. I'm not a project, Jasmine said, her voice barely above a whisper. No. Victoria leaned in close enough that Jasmine could smell the alcohol on her breath. Then what are you, sweetheart? You think because you got into Columbia on some quota you suddenly belong in rooms like this? You think that cheap dress and that eager smile make you one of us? Jasmine's throat tightened. She wouldn't cry. She absolutely would not give this woman the satisfaction. Victoria, that's enough. A new voice, male, authoritative. A man in his early 40s pushed through the crowd, his expression tight with disapproval. He wore his tuxedo like someone born to it, but his eyes were kind. Apologize to this young woman. Victoria whirled. Excuse me? Who do you think? She stopped, recognition flashing. Thomas, of course. Always the White Knight. Thomas Kingston. Jasmine recognized him from the business journals her economics professor assigned. CEO of Kingston Pharmaceuticals, known for his progressive policies and, apparently, for standing up to bullies at charity galas. It's fine, Jasmine said quickly. I should probably just... No. Thomas's voice was firm. You should stay. You were invited. You belong here. He turned to Victoria. And you should remember that cruelty isn't a substitute for class. No matter how expensive your dress is. Victoria's face went scarlet. How dare you? But Thomas had already turned his back on her, extending his arm to Jasmine. May I escort you to your table? I believe you're seated with the university representatives. Jasmine hesitated, then took his arm, her legs shaky beneath her. As they walked away, she could feel Victoria's glare burning into her back, and could hear the whispers erupting behind them. She'd been at the gala for less than 10 minutes, and already she'd made an enemy of one of the most powerful women in the room. What Jasmine didn't know, what no one in that ballroom knew yet, was that before the night was over, Victoria Hartwell would do something far worse than humiliate her. And when Jasmine finally revealed why she was really there, the truth would shatter more than just Victoria's carefully constructed world. Thomas Kingston guided Jasmine through the maze of round tables draped in ivory linen, past ice sculptures shaped like swans, past servers carrying trays of caviar-topped crackers that probably cost more than her textbooks. She kept her chin up, aware of the eyes still tracking her movement across the ballroom. Thank you, she said quietly when they reached a table near the front, marked with a small placard, Columbia University Partnership Initiative. Thomas pulled out her chair. Don't thank me. Victoria Hartwell is a cancer in these circles. Someone needed to call her out. He paused, his expression softening. Though I suspect you could have handled her yourself. Jasmine managed a small smile. I was about to. I believe it. He handed her his business card. If she gives you any more trouble tonight, find me. I mean it. As he walked away, Jasmine sank into her chair and exhaled slowly. Her hands were still shaking. She reached for the water glass in front of her, taking a long drink. That was quite an entrance. Jasmine turned to find an elderly woman settling into the chair beside her. She was small, bird-like, with silver hair swept into an elegant twist and eyes that missed nothing. Despite her age, probably mid-70s, she radiated a sharp intelligence. Dr. Whitfield? Jasmine asked. Eleanor, please. The woman's smile was warm, genuine. And you must be Jasmine Porter. I've been looking forward to meeting you all week. Your research proposal on intergenerational poverty and access to capital was extraordinary. The knot in Jasmine's chest loosened slightly. You actually read it? Every word. Twice. Eleanor leaned closer, her voice dropping conspiratorially. I also saw your run-in with Victoria. For what it's worth, that woman has been a plague on civil society for years. Her ex-husband had the good sense to divorce her. The rest of us just try to avoid her. She called me a diversity project, Jasmine said, the words still stinging. Eleanor's expression hardened. Victoria Hartwell measures people by the size of their bank accounts because she has nothing else to offer. No education, no skills, no substance. She married money. And when that ended, she was left with nothing but a settlement and a personality disorder. She patted Jasmine's hand. You, on the other hand, have a mind sharp enough to change systems. Never confuse net worth with actual worth. Before Jasmine could respond, the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage at the front of the ballroom. A man in his 60s approached the microphone, his tuxedo impeccable, his smile practiced. Good evening, everyone. I'm Robert Ashford, chairman of the Metropolitan Foundation. Thank you all for joining us for our 35th annual charity gala. Polite applause rippled through the room. Jasmine noticed Victoria Hartwell had taken a seat near the front, surrounded by a cluster of similarly dressed women. She was whispering to them, and every few seconds, one would glance back toward Jasmine's table. Tonight, Robert continued, we're honored to announce a groundbreaking partnership between the Metropolitan Foundation and Columbia University. This initiative will provide full scholarships to underprivileged students, along with mentorship from our most distinguished donors. More applause. Eleanor squeezed Jasmine's arm encouragingly. To tell you more about this program, I'd like to introduce one of its first recipients, a young woman whose research has already caught the attention of economists and policymakers across the country. Please welcome Jasmine Porter. Jasmine's stomach dropped. What? Eleanor smiled. Surprise. You're not just here to observe, dear. You're here to speak. I didn't prepare anything. You don't need to. Just tell them why you're passionate about economic justice. Tell them your story. Jasmine's legs felt like water as she stood. The walk to the stage seemed impossibly long, every step echoing in her ears. She could feel Victoria's eyes on her, and could practically hear the woman's contemptuous thoughts. She reached the microphone. 500 faces stared back at her. Some curious, some bored, some, like Victoria, openly hostile. Jasmine cleared her throat. Good evening. My name is Jasmine Porter, and her voice cracked. She took a breath, steadied herself. I grew up in Detroit. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us housed. My father left before I was born. By every statistical measure, I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. The room had gone quiet, really quiet. When I was 12, my grandmother got sick. Cancer. She had insurance, but it didn't cover the treatments she needed. We lost our house paying for her care. She died anyway. Jasmine's hands gripped the podium. I spent 2 years homeless, living in shelters, sleeping in my mother's car when the shelters were full. I studied by streetlight because we couldn't afford electricity. She could see Eleanor nodding encouragingly. Thomas Kingston had moved closer to the stage, his expression intent. The scholarship that brought me to Columbia didn't just give me an education. It gave me a future. It gave me proof that where you start doesn't have to determine where you finish. She paused. But here's the thing, I'm one of the lucky ones. For every student like me who gets a chance, there are thousands who don't. Thousands of brilliant minds lost to a system that measures potential by zip code. Jasmine's voice grew stronger. This partnership isn't charity. It's an investment. It's recognizing that talent is distributed equally, but opportunity isn't. And if we really want to solve the problems facing our society, poverty, inequality, injustice, we need voices from every background at every table where decisions are made. She looked directly at Victoria. Even tables like this one. The applause started slowly, then built. People were standing. Not everyone. Victoria remained seated, her face a mask of fury. But enough. Eleanor was beaming. Thomas was clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. Jasmine walked back to her seat on trembling legs. She'd done it. She'd spoken her truth in front of people who'd probably never had to think about streetlights or shelters or whether they'd eat that day. Beautifully done, Eleanor whispered. But as the evening progressed, through dinner, through more speeches, through the silent auction, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just painted an even bigger target on her back. During dessert, Victoria passed their table on her way to the restroom. She paused, leaning down so only Jasmine could hear. Enjoy your moment in the spotlight, scholarship girl. It won't last. People like you never do. The words were poison, delivered with a smile. Jasmine watched her go, a cold certainty settling in her chest. This wasn't over. Victoria Hartwell wasn't the type to accept humiliation quietly. What Jasmine didn't know was that in less than an hour, Victoria would escalate from verbal cruelty to physical violence. And when she did, everything would change. The gala had moved into its social hour. Jazz music drifted from a quartet in the corner while guests mingled, drinks in hand, connections being forged and deals being whispered over champagne. Jasmine stood near the dessert table, trying to look like she belonged while her mind still raced from the speech. Several people had approached her afterward. A venture capitalist interested in her research, a foundation director who wanted her contact information, even a reporter from the Wall Street Journal. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing on a frozen lake, waiting for the ice to crack. You were magnificent up there. A woman in her 40s materialized beside Jasmine, her smile warm. I'm Claire Donovan. I run a nonprofit focused on educational access. I'd love to talk about your research. They talked for several minutes, Claire asking thoughtful questions about Jasmine's methodology, her findings, her goals. It felt good to discuss her work with someone who genuinely understood it. For a moment, Jasmine almost forgot about Victoria. Then she saw her. Victoria was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a group of women who looked like carbon copies of each other. Blonde, thin, dripping in jewelry. They kept glancing in Jasmine's direction, their laughter carrying across the ballroom like broken glass. Don't let them get to you, Claire said quietly, following Jasmine's gaze. Victoria's always been threatened by women with substance. It's why her marriage fell apart. What do you mean? Claire hesitated, then lowered her voice. Marcus Chen, her ex-husband, he's brilliant. Built his company from nothing. But Victoria, she wanted a lifestyle, not a partnership. When he started donating to causes she thought were beneath them, like education reform and poverty relief, she threw tantrums. Publicly, Claire shook her head. The divorce was brutal. She tried to take him for everything, claiming he owed her half of a company she never contributed to. The judge saw through it. She got a settlement. Sure, but nothing close to what she wanted. So she's angry at the world, Jasmine said. She's angry at anyone who reminds her of her irrelevance. Claire squeezed Jasmine's arm. Which means you, with your actual achievements and your actual purpose, are her worst nightmare. The warning in Claire's voice was clear. Be careful. But Jasmine was tired of being careful. She'd spent her whole life making herself smaller, quieter, less threatening to people who felt threatened by her existence. Tonight, she'd spoken her truth. She wasn't about to apologize for it. She excused herself from Claire and headed toward the restroom, needing a moment alone to collect herself. The ladies' lounge was mercifully empty, all marble and gold fixtures and a sitting area with velvet chairs. Jasmine stood at the mirror, fixing her hair, trying to see herself the way Eleanor and Thomas had seen her tonight. Capable, worthy, belonging. The door swung open behind her. Victoria Hartwell stood in the doorway, flanked by two of her friends. The smile on her face was predatory. Well, little Miss Inspiration. Victoria's heels clicked against the marble as she approached. That was quite a performance out there. Did you practice your sob story in the mirror? Or does it just come naturally? Jasmine's fingers tightened on the edge of the sink. Excuse me? Oh, don't play innocent. Victoria moved closer, and Jasmine could smell the vodka on her breath. She'd clearly had several drinks since dinner. You think I don't know what you're doing? Playing the victim, tugging at heartstrings. making these bleeding hearts feel guilty enough to throw money at you. I told the truth, Jasmine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The truth, Victoria laughed, harsh and sharp. The truth is you're a con artist in a cheap dress. You saw an opportunity to milk sympathy from wealthy people, and you took it. It's actually impressive in a pathetic sort of way. One of Victoria's friends giggled. The other pulled out her phone, clearly recording. Jasmine's face burned. You don't know anything about me. I know exactly what you are. Victoria's voice dropped, venomous. You're a leech, parasite. You think because you memorized some statistics and learned to speak properly, you suddenly deserve access to our world? You think we can't see right through you? Victoria, leave her alone. The voice came from behind them. Another woman had entered. Someone Jasmine didn't recognize, older, with kind eyes. You're drunk. Go home. Stay out of this, Patricia. Victoria didn't even turn around. Her focus was locked on Jasmine like a laser. This girl needs to understand her place. My place. Something in Jasmine snapped. She'd spent the evening being grateful, being humble, being the perfect scholarship student who knew when to smile and nod. But this was too much. My place is anywhere I earn the right to be. I didn't steal my way here. I didn't marry my way here. I worked. I studied. I survived things you couldn't even imagine in your champagne bubble. Victoria's face went scarlet. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? You've been attacking me all night because I threaten you. Because I represent everything you're not. Someone who actually earned what they have. The words hung in the air like smoke. Victoria's friends had gone silent. Even Patricia looked shocked. Victoria's hand trembled at her side. You entitled little. I'm entitled? Jasmine's laugh was bitter. You've had everything handed to you your entire life, and the moment someone who actually worked for their success shows up, you can't handle it. That's not my problem. That's yours. For a moment, Victoria just stared, her chest heaving. Then she smiled, cold, calculating. You just made a very big mistake. She turned on her heel and strode out, her friends scurrying after her. Patricia approached Jasmine, concern etched on her face. Honey, you need to be careful. Victoria doesn't forgive, and she doesn't forget. When she feels humiliated, she destroys people. Let her try, Jasmine said. But her voice shook. She waited a few minutes before leaving the restroom, trying to calm the adrenaline coursing through her veins. When she emerged back into the ballroom, the party was still in full swing, but something had shifted. People were staring at her differently now. Whispers followed her like a shadow. She found Eleanor near the silent auction tables. The older woman's expression was troubled. What happened? Jasmine asked. Eleanor pulled her aside, her voice low. Victoria's been making the rounds. She's telling anyone who'll listen that you were rude to her, that you're using a fabricated sob story to manipulate people. She's trying to turn the room against you. Jasmine's stomach dropped. But that's not. I know it's not true. Thomas knows it's not true. But Victoria has influence, and she knows how to plant doubt. Eleanor's eyes were fierce. We need to be smart about this. Stay close to me. Don't engage with her again. But as Jasmine looked across the ballroom, she saw Victoria watching her with a smile that promised violence. The night wasn't over, and the worst was yet to come. The tension in the ballroom had shifted from elegant charity events to something darker, more volatile. Jasmine could feel it in the way conversations stopped when she passed, in the sideways glances, in the careful distance people now kept from her table. Victoria's poison was spreading. Eleanor had positioned herself as a buffer, introducing Jasmine to allies, steering her away from clusters where Victoria held court. But even Eleanor's considerable influence couldn't stop the whispers. I heard she made the whole thing up. Apparently, she was never even homeless. Someone said Columbia is investigating her application for fraud. Each lie hit Jasmine like a physical blow. She wanted to scream, to grab every person spreading Victoria's venom and force them to see the truth. But Eleanor's hand on her arm kept her grounded. Don't react, Eleanor whispered. That's what she wants. We need to be strategic. At 9 o'clock, Robert Ashford returned to the stage for the final portion of the evening, the announcement of donation pledges. This was the culmination of the gala, where wealthy attendees publicly committed funds to the Metropolitan Foundation, their generosity immortalized in the program and press releases. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your incredible generosity tonight, Robert began. I'm thrilled to announce that we've already raised over $3 million for our scholarship initiative. Applause filled the room. Jasmine felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Victoria's campaign hadn't worked. Maybe people could see through her lies. We have several major pledges to announce, Robert continued. First, Thomas Kingston has pledged $500,000 to establish the Kingston Merit Scholarship for students from underserved communities. More applause. Thomas stood, nodding graciously. His eyes found Jasmine's across the room, and he gave her a subtle nod of support. Additionally, Robert said, we have a very special announcement. One of tonight's guests has requested to make a statement regarding the scholarship program. Victoria Hartwell, please join me on stage. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. Eleanor's hand tightened on her arm. Oh no! Victoria glided to the stage, her emerald gown catching the light, her smile radiant. She looked like a movie star, like royalty, like someone who belonged under spotlights. When she took the microphone, her voice was honey-sweet. Thank you, Robert. I wanted to take a moment to address something that's been troubling me all evening. She paused, her expression shifting to concern. We've heard a very moving story tonight from a young woman about her struggles, her hardships, her journey. And I, like many of you, was deeply touched. Jasmine's heart pounded. This wasn't going to be good. But as someone who's dedicated her life to philanthropy, Eleanor snorted quietly, I have to ask difficult questions. We have a responsibility to ensure that our charitable dollars go to those who truly need them, not to those who would exploit our generosity. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were leaning forward now, sensing drama. I did some research this evening, Victoria continued, pulling out her phone, and I discovered some troubling inconsistencies in Miss Porter's story. For instance, she claims to have been homeless, yet she attended one of Detroit's better public schools, a magnet program that requires a permanent address for enrollment. Jasmine stood, her chair scraping loudly. That's not. Please, let me finish. Victoria's smile was sharp. She also claims her family had no resources, yet I found social media posts from just 3 years ago showing her at a restaurant, celebrating a birthday. Odd behavior for someone supposedly living in a car. Those posts are from after we got housing, Jasmine shouted, her voice cracking. After my mother finally saved enough. And there's more, Victoria talked over her. I contacted a colleague at Columbia. They confirmed that Miss Porter's scholarship was need-based. Yes, but there are questions about whether she fully disclosed her family's financial situation. Questions about whether she may have exaggerated certain hardships to secure funding she didn't deserve. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, some people pulling out their phones to fact-check, others simply staring at Jasmine with newfound suspicion. That's a lie. Jasmine pushed past Eleanor, moving toward the stage. You're lying. I never. You see. Victoria gestured at Jasmine like she was Exhibit A. This is the behavior of someone caught in a deception. Aggressive, defensive, unwilling to answer legitimate questions. Thomas was on his feet now, moving toward the stage. Victoria, this is completely inappropriate. Is it? Victoria's eyes glittered with triumph. Is it inappropriate to demand accountability? To protect donors from fraud? I think it's irresponsible not to ask these questions. Jasmine reached the base of the stage, her whole body shaking. 500 pairs of eyes were on her. Some sympathetic, most uncertain, a few openly hostile. Everything I said tonight was true, she said, her voice breaking. Every word. I was homeless. My grandmother died. We struggled. Those aren't lies. They're my life. Victoria descended the stage steps, closing the distance between them. Up close, Jasmine could see the hatred burning in her eyes, could smell the vodka and fury radiating off her. Your life? Victoria hissed, quiet enough that only Jasmine and the closest guests could hear. Or your ticket to free money. Girls like you are always working an angle. Girls like me. Jasmine's voice rose. You mean black girls? Poor girls? Girls who didn't marry their way into wealth. The words carried across the ballroom. Someone gasped. Victoria's face contorted with rage. How dare you play the race card? I'm not playing anything. Jasmine was shouting now, all pretense of composure shattered. You've attacked me from the moment I walked in here. Not because of anything I did, but because of who I am. Because I don't fit your idea of who deserves to be in this room. You're right. You don't deserve to be here. Victoria's voice was pure venom. You're a liar and a fraud. And everyone in this room now knows it. I'm not a liar. Yes, you are. Victoria stepped closer, invading Jasmine's space. You're a manipulative little con artist who saw an opportunity and took it. Well, congratulations. You got your moment of attention. But it's over now. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. Jasmine felt tears burning in her eyes, felt the weight of 500 people watching her fall apart, felt every ounce of dignity she'd fought for tonight crumbling. You don't know me, she whispered. I know exactly what you are. And then Victoria did something that would change everything. She raised her hand and slapped Jasmine across the face. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. For a moment, everything stopped. The music, the whispers, the breathing. 500 people froze in shock. Jasmine's cheek burned. Her eyes watered from the impact. She stood there, stunned, as Victoria's handprint bloomed red across her dark skin. That, Victoria said coldly, is what happens to liars. The ballroom exploded. People shouting, rushing forward, phones appearing to capture the moment. Thomas reached Victoria, his face thunderous. Eleanor was at Jasmine's side, arms around her. Security guards appeared from nowhere. And Jasmine, standing in the center of it all, her cheek throbbing, her heart shattered, made a decision. She was done being the victim, done being the target, done letting people like Victoria define who she was and what she deserved. It was time to show them who she really was. You want to know the truth? Jasmine's voice cut through the chaos, loud and clear and absolutely steady. I'll tell you the truth. All of it. The room fell silent again, waiting. But first, Jasmine said, her eyes locked on Victoria's. You're going to hear exactly who I am, and why I was really invited here tonight. The ballroom was so quiet you could hear the chandeliers trembling. 500 people held their breath, phones raised, all eyes fixed on the 19-year-old girl with a handprint blazing across her face. Victoria stood frozen, her hands still raised from the slap, uncertainty flickering across her features for the first time all night. She'd crossed a line and she knew it, but she couldn't back down now, not in front of all these people. Security, she called out, her voice shrill. Remove this girl before I press charges for harassment. Press charges. Thomas Kingston's voice boomed across the ballroom. He strode forward, his face dark with fury. You just assaulted a guest at a charity event. In front of 500 witnesses. If anyone's pressing charges, it's her. She provoked me. She defended herself against your lies. Thomas turned to the crowd. Every person in this room with a phone, I hope you captured what just happened. Because Victoria Hartwell just committed assault. And I'll personally ensure she faces consequences. Victoria's face went pale, but she rallied. You're defending a con artist? This girl lied about everything. Did she? Eleanor Whitfield's voice cut through, sharp as glass. The elderly woman moved to stand beside Jasmine, her small frame radiating fury. Because I have her scholarship application right here. She pulled out her phone, holding it up, complete with documentation from the Detroit Housing Authority confirming her family's homeless status from 2020 to 2022. Court records from her grandmother's medical bankruptcy. School records showing her attendance at 3 different high schools as her family moved between shelters. Victoria's certainty wavered. That doesn't prove. It proves everything you said was a lie. Eleanor's voice was ice. You didn't do research tonight, Victoria. You made up accusations to destroy a young woman who threatened your fragile ego. That's not philanthropy. That's cruelty. Murmurs spread through the crowd, but they were different now. Angry. Directed at Victoria instead of Jasmine. This is ridiculous, Victoria sputtered. I don't have to stand here and… You're right. You don't. Jasmine's voice was steady now, the shock wearing off, replaced by something harder. You can leave, but before you do, everyone here deserves to know why you really hate me. Why did you spend all night trying to destroy me? Victoria's eyes narrowed. I don't even know you, but you know Marcus Chun. The name dropped like a bomb. Victoria went rigid. That's right, Jasmine continued, her voice growing stronger. Your ex-husband. The man whose company just pledged $10 million to Columbia's scholarship fund. The same fund that gave me my education. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were recording everything now. Victoria's face twisted. What does Marcus have to do with everything? Jasmine reached into her small crossbody bag, the one her grandmother had given her, and pulled out a folded letter. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. 2 weeks ago, I received this letter from Marcus Chun. Would you like me to read it? Don't you dare. Victoria lunged forward, but Thomas stepped between them. Jasmine's voice rang out clear and strong. Dear Ms. Porter, I am writing to inform you that Chen Technologies has selected you as the inaugural recipient of the Jasmine Porter Memorial Scholarship, named in honor of my late mother. The room erupted in shock. Jasmine pressed on, her voice thick with emotion. My mother, Jasmine Chun, who you knew as Jasmine Porter before she married my father, spent her final years advocating for educational access for underprivileged students. She believed that poverty was not a personal failing but a systemic barrier that could be overcome through education and opportunity. Tears streamed down Jasmine's face, but she didn't wipe them away. My mother passed away 3 years ago, but before she did, she made me promise to continue her work, to use the resources our family had been blessed with to help students like the one she once was, brilliant minds trapped by circumstance. The silence was absolute. Every person in that ballroom was piecing it together. You're his daughter, someone whispered. I'm Marcus Chen's daughter, Jasmine confirmed, her voice breaking. The scholarship fund that brought me to Columbia? It was established by my father in my mother's name. The desperate homeless girl you've been mocking all night? I chose to apply under my mother's maiden name because I wanted to understand what students without connections, without wealth, without famous last names experience when they try to access education. She turned to face Victoria directly. I wanted to see how the system treated people who looked like my mother. Black, poor, fighting for every opportunity. And you showed me exactly what she faced. The assumptions, the cruelty, the dismissal. Victoria's face had gone from red to white. Her mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. My father didn't want me to do this, Jasmine continued. He thought it was too dangerous, too hurtful. But I needed to know. I needed to understand why, despite all the money he's donated, despite all the programs he's funded, students of color still face barriers that have nothing to do with merit and everything to do with prejudice. Eleanor was crying now, one hand pressed to her mouth. Thomas looked stunned. Tonight, you proved everything I suspected, Jasmine said to Victoria. You saw a young black woman in an inexpensive dress, and you decided I didn't belong. Not because of anything I did or said, but because of what I represented, someone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of worth. I didn't know, Victoria started. It wouldn't have mattered if you did. Jasmine's voice was firm. Because your contempt isn't about me specifically. It's about everyone you think is beneath you. Everyone who doesn't have the right clothes, the right connections, the right skin color. She held up her phone, and her voice softened. My father is watching this live stream right now. So are 50,000 other people. Because I've been broadcasting everything that happened here tonight. Every insult, every accusation, every moment of cruelty. Directly to social media. Victoria staggered backward as if she'd been slapped herself. Around the room, guests were frantically pulling out their phones, checking social media. their faces draining of color as they realized the gala had been exposed to the world. "You wanted to know if I'm a fraud?" Jasmine's voice carried to every corner of the ballroom. "I'm not, but you are. You're a fraud who hides cruelty behind charity, who measures human worth in dollars, who attacks vulnerable people to make yourself feel powerful." She turned to address the entire room. "My father's company will still honor its $10 million pledge to Colombia. But every person in this room needs to ask themselves a question. When you see someone who doesn't look like you, who doesn't dress like you, who doesn't come from your world, what do you see? An opportunity to help or a threat to diminish?" The ballroom was utterly silent except for the click of cameras, the scratch of reporters' pens, the quiet sobbing of several guests who'd realized they'd been complicit in Victoria's cruelty. Robert Ashford climbed back onto the stage, his face ashen. "Miss Chun, Miss Porter, I apologize. On behalf of the Metropolitan Foundation, I deeply apologize. What happened here tonight is unacceptable." Victoria finally found her voice, shrill and desperate. "You can't do this to me. I'll sue you for defamation." "Sue me?" Jasmine's laugh was bitter. "You assaulted me on camera. You slandered me in front of hundreds of witnesses. You tried to destroy my reputation with lies. What exactly do you think you'll sue me for?" "Telling the truth." Thomas stepped forward. "Victoria, I suggest you leave. Now, before this gets any worse for you." Victoria looked around wildly, searching for allies, but everyone had turned away. Even her friends from earlier had melted into the crowd, unwilling to be associated with her now. She grabbed her clutch and ran, literally ran from the ballroom, her heels clicking frantically against the marble, the sound echoing long after she disappeared through the doors. Jasmine stood in the center of the ballroom, her cheek still burning from the slap, her heart racing. Then slowly, from the back of the room, someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was on its feet, applause thundering through the space. Not polite charity gala applause, but real, powerful, moved applause. Eleanor wrapped her arms around Jasmine. "Your mother would be so proud." Thomas approached, his eyes shining. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." But Jasmine barely heard them. She was thinking about her mother, the woman who'd faced these same battles, who'd fought these same prejudices, who'd believed that education and opportunity could change everything. Tonight, Jasmine had honored that legacy and exposed a truth that needed to be seen. The applause eventually faded, but the energy in the ballroom had fundamentally shifted. What had begun as an elegant charity gala had transformed into something far more significant, a moment that would ripple far beyond these marble walls. Jasmine stood at the center of it all, exhausted and exhilarated, as reporters swarmed forward with questions. Security had to form a barrier around her, Eleanor, and Thomas. "Miss Chun, how long have you been planning this? Was your father aware of what you were doing? What do you say to critics who might call this a publicity stunt?" Eleanor raised her hand, her voice cutting through the chaos. "That's enough. Miss Chun has said what she needed to say. The rest, you can read in the research paper she'll be publishing next month on systemic barriers in educational access." As security escorted them to a private room off the ballroom, Jasmine's phone buzzed incessantly. Text messages flooded in, from classmates, professors, strangers who'd watched the live stream. But one message made her stop walking. "Dad, I'm outside. Whenever you're ready." Jasmine's breath caught. She hadn't seen her father since she'd insisted on doing this experiment over his objections. He'd thought it was too risky, too painful. He'd been right about the pain, but she'd been right about the necessity. "Go," Eleanor said gently, reading her expression. "We'll handle the press. Go see your father." Jasmine slipped out through a side entrance, away from the cameras and questions. The December air was sharp and cold, cutting through her thin borrowed dress. A black town car idled at the curb, and as she approached, the back door opened. Marcus Chun stepped out. He was smaller than he appeared in photographs, barely 5'7", with graying hair and glasses, wearing a simple dark suit. He didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a father whose daughter had just been assaulted on livestream. "Baby girl," he said, his voice cracking. Jasmine ran to him, and he caught her in a fierce hug. She broke down then, all the strength she'd shown in the ballroom dissolving into sobs against his shoulder. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. You were right. It was too much. I shouldn't have." "Shoo!" Marcus held her tight. "You were magnificent. Your mother would have been so proud." "I'm so proud." They stood there for a long moment, the city noise humming around them, before Marcus pulled back to look at her face. His expression darkened when he saw the red mark still visible on her cheek. "She hit you," he said quietly. "I'm okay." "No, you're not. But you will be." He cupped her face gently. "And she won't be. My lawyers are already preparing a lawsuit. Assault, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. By the time we're done, Victoria Hartwell will wish she'd never heard your name." Jasmine shook her head. "I don't want revenge, Dad. I wanted the truth. And we got it." Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're more like your mother than I realized. She would have said the same thing." He smiled sadly. "She would have also punched Victoria in the face, but that's beside the point." Jasmine laughed through her tears. Her mother had been fierce, gentle with those she loved, ruthless with those who threatened them. The scholarship program bearing her name was a testament to both sides of that nature. "The live stream has over 2 million views," Marcus said. "It's trending on every platform. News outlets are calling. Politicians are commenting. You've started a conversation that's bigger than one night, bigger than one woman's cruelty." "I just wanted people to see what it's really like," Jasmine said softly. "For students who don't have connections, who don't have safety nets, who get judged before they even open their mouths. They see it now." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her the flood of social media posts. Students sharing their own stories of discrimination. Teachers discussing unconscious bias. Donors committing to scholarship funds. "You've changed something, Jasmine. It really changed it." Inside, through the windows, Jasmine could see the gala continuing. Some guests had left, clearly uncomfortable with what they'd witnessed or their own complicity. But others remained, engaged in animated conversations that looked different from the superficial networking of earlier in the evening. "What happens now?" Jasmine asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. "Now? Now we do the work your mother started. We expanded the scholarship program. We fund research on access and equity. We partner with schools in underserved communities." He looked at his daughter with fierce pride. "And you finish your degree, publish your research, and show the world that intelligence and worth have nothing to do with bank accounts or last names. What about Victoria?" "Victoria Hartwell is finished in these circles. By tomorrow morning, every foundation, every charity board, every social club will have seen that video. She assaulted a teenager at a charity event. Nobody will touch her." He paused. "But more importantly, she exposed herself. Everyone sees who she really is when she thinks nobody important is watching." Jasmine thought about that. Victoria hadn't known she was attacking a billionaire's daughter. She'd thought Jasmine was nobody, and that had made her cruelty permissible in her own mind. That was the real revelation. Not what Victoria had done to someone powerful, but what she was willing to do to someone she perceived as powerless. Eleanor emerged from the side entrance, wrapped in her coat. "There you are. The press wants a statement." "Tell them Miss Chan has said everything she needs to say tonight," Marcus replied smoothly. Eleanor smiled. "I already did. But I wanted to give you something." She handed Jasmine an envelope. "Open it tomorrow when you've rested. It's a formal invitation to present your research at the National Education Policy Conference in March. They want you as a keynote speaker." Jasmine's eyes widened. "But I'm just a freshman who exposed systemic bias at the highest levels of philanthropy?" Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "Just a young woman who had the courage to stand up to cruelty even when it meant revealing her own vulnerability? Just someone who live-streamed a truth that 2 million people needed to see." She squeezed Jasmine's hand. "You're not just anything, dear. You're extraordinary. And the world knows it now." Thomas Kingston appeared next, his bow tie loosened, looking exhausted but energized. The foundation board just held an emergency meeting. Robert Ashford is stepping down. They're asking if you'd be willing to serve as an advisor on the scholarship committee. Me? Jasmine looked to her father, overwhelmed. It's your choice, Marcus said. But they need voices like yours. People who understand both sides, privilege and poverty, success and struggle. Over the next hour, more people emerged with offers, opportunities, partnerships. A documentary filmmaker wanted to follow Jasmine's research. A civil rights organization wanted her to speak at their conference. A publisher wanted her to write a book about her experience. Through it all, Jasmine felt the weight of her mother's legacy settling on her shoulders. Not as a burden, but as wings. Finally, as midnight approached, Marcus opened the car door. Come on, let's go home. Your grandmother's been worried sick. Grandma Chun. Jasmine smiled. Her father's mother, who'd immigrated from Taiwan with nothing and built a life through sheer determination, who'd taught both Marcus and Jasmine that dignity wasn't given. It was claimed. She watched the whole thing. She's making your favorite dumplings and threatening to find Victoria Hartwell herself. Marcus grinned. I had to promise her we'd handle it legally. As they drove through the Manhattan streets, Jasmine watched the city lights blur past. Somewhere out there, Victoria Hartwell was probably drowning her humiliation in expensive wine, surrounded by the wreckage of her reputation. Jasmine felt no satisfaction in that, only sadness for someone so consumed by bitterness that she couldn't see her own privilege. But she also felt hope, because tomorrow, students across the country would wake up to the story of a girl who'd been slapped at a gala and responded not with violence but with truth. They'd see that dignity could withstand cruelty, that authenticity was more powerful than wealth, that speaking up, even when your voice shook, could change everything. Her phone buzzed with a final text from Eleanor. Your mother gave you her name, her passion, and her courage. Tonight you honored all three. Sleep well, warrior. Jasmine looked at her father, who was holding her hand tightly, his eyes on the road. She thought about her mother, Jasmine Chun, who'd fought for every opportunity and dedicated her life to creating opportunities for others, who'd believed that education was the great equalizer, if only people could access it fairly. Dad, Jasmine said quietly. Yeah, baby girl. Thank you for letting me do this. Even though it scared you. Marcus's grip tightened. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified. He glanced at her. Your mother taught me that, and tonight you taught the world. As they pulled up to the brownstone in Brooklyn where Marcus had raised his daughter after her mother's death, Jasmine saw her grandmother silhouetted in the doorway, small but fierce, waiting. She stepped out of the car, the December cold sharp on her face, the handprint from Victoria's slap still faintly visible on her cheek. A mark that would fade by morning but whose impact would last far longer. Tomorrow, the work will continue. Tomorrow, the conversations will deepen. Tomorrow, she'd return to being a college student with papers to write and exams to study for. But tonight, she'd done something her mother had dreamed of, exposed a truth that needed light, given voice to the voiceless, and proven that respect wasn't about money or status. It was about seeing the humanity in every person, regardless of where they came from or what they wore or how much power they held, and that truth, once seen, could never be unseen. The door opened, and her grandmother's arms reached for her. Jasmine Chun, daughter, student, warrior, walked home.